try to get some closure to this issue sometime before our term is up, I would hope. I don't think we can leave the school board and the community sitting with this where it stands, which is in limbo, in my opinion. And I really think that based on the public hearing and the conversations I've had in the community since, is that we really weren't that far from a solution. There was just some changes that needed to be made and maybe some more teeth put into the guidelines. And I'd like to see us bring this back or get staff to either work with the committee and maybe a couple representatives from CASA and a couple other, maybe expand that group maybe a little bit to try to finalize that document and bring it back later. So my whole purpose of putting this on the agenda was to have a discussion and find out if everybody felt we were close and just needed some refining, and if everybody is in favor of trying to make this happen sooner rather than later.
Councillor Crandall.
Well, I'm totally in favor of that. I just want to say from the Affordable Housing Committee that the committee was meeting with, I think they maybe already have met with people from CASA, and they were going to be talking to, like, there's a need to go out and get some affordable land. So they were going to meet with First Nations, I think, and they were going to meet with the school board. And there's things that are kind of happening out there. So I think in the next little while, some of this may get brought forward to council. And I'm mature with this because it can perhaps take care of itself with some of the recommendations that came forward. And I also think we weren't too far from some type of agreement. So, but I'd like to see us just maybe wait a month.
Councillor Sept.
Thank you, Your Worship. In relation to that, I think key things, of course, are what sort of time frames is the Affordable Housing Committee under the EDS working on. My basic understanding from a few conversations I've had as well, that it's probably something that they wouldn't have a finished sort of report for their side, recognizing that in the midst of that report there could be some action until, I'm guessing, end of the year, coming into February or coming into January. So certainly, I don't know whether that's the time frame Councillor Flynn is looking for. As well, of course, with the whole issue of the Jackson grounds, of course, as per Mr. Granger's representation from CAS, they're about to go through a sort of community neighborhood networking and workshop process, as you've probably all seen in the letter that he sent us, outlining the process that the smart growth effort is about to undertake. So certainly I think a good part of ensuring that whatever comes forward in the next phase for guidelines for that site, it reflects two things at least. One is potentially communication with the community as a whole as to, per the presentations we had recently, what sort of vision they have for that site, so that when ultimately those guidelines come forward again to council, that they are in alignment with what the community will support. A half hour having a forum session of people telling us that they don't like what they're seeing, as well as on the neighborhood basis of the neighborhood or neighborhoods around Jackson ground, asking the residents in that area sort of what they would like, because they would be the most directly impacted. So I certainly understand from the smart growth process that that will occur. So in conjunction with the affordable housing elements, I think certainly we can move this forward in a fairly expedited process, but at the same time I still think we're looking at probably 3 to 4 months.
Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if people are at least on side with what I felt were the 4 major issues that caused the biggest problem. First of all, I think at some point this council has to take some leadership and recognize that that committee did do some very good work, and that a park solution on that site. So I know a lot of the people that feel it should be a park, and that probably isn't the best use of that piece. And I've been saying that all along. I felt there was guidelines probably weren't as tight as they needed to be, and I'm wondering if there's any others that I've missed. Number 1, gas bar drive-through probably has to be eliminated from the guidelines. And I'll ask CASA for their comments on this. The second was the trail network that Councillor Eliason was very strong about in the committee meetings. The trail from the Blackburn corner, as I call it, to the Shuswap River that crosses across the site. The drawing that Bernd did, and I hope you found Bernd, showed that very clearly, and I think that that component needs to be more clearly etched in the guidelines. Obviously, the 100,000 square feet was a significant issue, and that definitely needs to be revisited, and a number either as low as 40,000 or somewhere between 40 and 100 needs to be finalized, because the committee originally had 40,000. The other issue was the housing component. Wasn't strong enough, maybe wasn't prescriptive enough. But I think it's important to note that if that is the choice for affordable housing, that the landlord or the owner, affordable housing, a big issue with it is affordable land. And they've already said that if they're selling, they want market value. And if they're leasing, that's another issue, but we need to determine how we can get enough of housing component on there and doesn't need to be more prescriptive. Am I missing anything in those four that anybody feels here that was points of contention with the guidelines, or anybody in the audience that there's anything else that really, besides maybe more prescriptive park as well, green space?
We were discussing housing, and mixed use kept coming up, and I kept thinking of mixed use as integrated housing, whereas the proposal called for 1 acre to be set aside and made into housing. I thought, well, then you've got a 10-acre commercial use, you know. So I think
Okay, so that's part of the housing component, though.
Yeah.
You make it prescriptive that it has to be on top of it, or that it has to be a certain number of housing units. Yeah. So was there anything else that anybody felt? Because I really don't see us needing to take 6-8 months to finalize those. That's just my opinion. So,
Councillor Leisman.
No, I think you're right. Those are the main 4 points.
I suggest, or even do I believe necessarily that all the residents in the surrounding neighborhoods to this site are strictly desiring a park on the site. But along those lines, I do think that having council take a proactive role in communicating what that vision is for the site that we would like to see as a community, as well as they'll get the input from the surrounding neighborhoods as to what their vision is or how those two visions can come together in meeting the school district needs and the community's needs. I think it can occur here by taking the committee's report back and saying, okay, where was the disconnect and how can we come to that agreement, whether through as Councillor Flynn was suggesting, some discussions with CASA and other groups. But I certainly think, like I said, we need to take at least a couple of weeks to have those discussions or allow for those meetings to occur. And then as soon as that has come forward and we can rationalize the input with the guidelines, with the disconnects that we were seeing or hearing during the recent hearing, that then we will have something that we can then potentially, the plan per Councillor Flynn's suggestion with these several elements he's outlined, and we'll be able to proceed more efficiently.
Okay.
Good discussion. I just think we should all wait a short while here, even into the year, and I